Hello, hello, hello. Today's show is brought to you by Indeed.com. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Go to Indeed.com/standupwithpete. Stand up. Hello, my friends, and welcome to today's episode of Stand Up, where I have a very special guest and a special featured guest, is what I'm calling it, because Pete Coe is on the go. He's in Finland, and he is hilarious and as curious as always. That is coming up. But first, I caught up with the great April Rain yesterday. She is an activist. She is a lawyer. She is an all-around brilliant person who has also become a good friend of mine over the years, and listeners love when she joins. She's become a media strategist and a huge, staunch advocate for diversity and inclusion when it comes to the film industry. She created the Oscars So White movement and more. Very excited to share my conversation with April Rain with you today. Coming up in just a moment, but I just wanted to say hi. I just wanted to say hi and thank you to everybody who listens, and especially those of you who are subscribers and members of the stand-up community. Yesterday, I wrote in the email that I send to listeners every day that includes a wonderful picture of nature sent in by different listeners every day, which I love and helps us keep connected and get outside, which you'll get in your inbox every morning along with a little message to me, from me to you. And yesterday, I included in my note that I'm feeling a little insecure about you and I, and that I hope we're okay. I haven't heard from you in a while, and maybe you aren't listening anymore. Maybe it's because I stopped recapping and covering the news to keep you addicted to this show. Oh, I don't know what it is, but please let me know that you're still there and that you still care. I always want to make the show better and connect with the community more. And I got a whole bunch of messages from folks, emails. Hi, Kevin and Rob. Hello, Ian Van Kirk and Nathan and everybody else who reached out to say hello. I appreciate you. Sorry for feeling so needy and insecure. It's just kind of the dead of summer, and I just feel like I'm not as connected to the audience that I love so much and become friends with so many of you. I hope to see you at Thursday night's hangout if you are a subscriber. If you aren't, while the show does have a sponsor this week, I can't do it without your subscription. I'm not getting rich over here, but I'm making it work. But I definitely need more folks to subscribe to the show to keep it going for sure, to be able to do the type of work that I'm doing each and every day. So head over to standupwithpete.com or patreon.com/Pete Dominic right now if you haven't already. Look forward to meeting you if I haven't already. And okay, that's it. I know everything going on in the news. I'm paying close attention to everything, as I'm sure that you probably are, and we're going to talk about it here on the show with all of my very special guests. Who would you like to have me have on, by the way? Who hasn't been on in a while that you'd like to hear from again? Who's never been on that you'd love for me to have on for the first time? Let me know. standupwithpete@gmail.com. That's my email. I check it way too often. All right. Well, as I said, April Rain is an activist, a media advocate, a lawyer. She grew up in New Jersey and Newark. She went to college in Texas. She's lived in the DMV area, Washington, Maryland. What does the D stand for? I always forget. Delaware? Virginia? I stink. And now she lives out in L.A., where she recently moved. And that is where we pick up. We talk about Comic-Con and some of the new movies out, including Till, about Emmett Till, and the new Black Panther movie, Wakanda, and all and everything around that, and so much more. I really hope that you'll like and enjoy this conversation with this amazing person. She's on Twitter at Reign of April. You can find her at reignofApril.com, and you are going to want to stay after this conversation is over, because Pete Coe went to Finland, and it's solid gold, folks. All right, here we go with April Rain. And thanks to our friend Tina Winsett, who always encourages me to get April back on, because she never disappoints. April or Tina. Okay, here we go. The opportunity to talk to April Rain, who is doing such good work, who has just transitioned in her life to the West Coast, and there's always so much to talk about, and we always have such good talks, including off the air. Such a good friend and mentor. How are you? Great to see you. Thank you for joining me.
I am well. I am happy to be back with you, and let's get into it, because there's so much to cover.
Well, first of all, just tell everybody how it's going. You moved from the East Coast to the West Coast to be, I'm assuming, to be closer to the industry for which you're working in, you're covering, and you're trying to change.
Yes. So I got divorced in October of last year. Yay, congratulations. We are incredibly happy about that. Both of my kids are out of the house. One is graduated from college. One is a rising sophomore in college. And so there was really nothing keeping me in the DMV where I lived since 1994. So the question was either New York or LA because that's where I spend most of my time. And, God bless New York. I love New York, especially Brooklyn, but I was over the winters and the snow and didn't want to have to deal with the rats. So I moved to LA.
How is I just encountered a New York rat the other day, and I've never been shocked by a rat, but it shocked me. How is the community out there embracing? You got a network. How do you make friends? Did you already have a lot of friends, or you seem like a person that makes friends very easily?
Oh, that's so not true.
No,
no, I'm an introvert by nature. And I'm not a huge fan, but Drake says no new friends. And I ascribe to that. Yeah. So I try to keep my circle, incredibly small. So it's actually kind of hard for me to make friends. And at some point, I am on the very lowest rung of all of this, and tangential to the entertainment industry. But there are times when I question, okay, is it because you want me to get you into a particular premiere, or you want to meet somebody that's actually famous, or do you just want to hang out because, you think I'm cute or whatever, right? So thankfully, because I'm out here in LA so much, I do have a community of folks. And I always forget, I have an obscene number of followers on Twitter, but I never think about where they actually live. And so, I get out here and people are like, oh, let's do lunch, right? Because that's very LA. And so it's been lovely. Because I'm an introvert, I'm not looking to go out all the time. But if I do for, personal reasons, not work related stuff, there's always someone that I can call. And it's been wonderful.
All right. Well, if listeners in Southern California want to invite April over for any kind of a meal, then look her up.
Tequila. Yes, we are very pro tequila. Absolutely.
Well, tell her, you've gotten to know her here on this show, at least. And it's like, the people who come on with me on a fairly regular basis become, you feel like you know them. You feel like you're actually friends with them. So you're out there covering and I think infiltrating the entertainment industry to try to change it. Like you're getting inside so that you can change it from the inside as opposed to from just the outside with social media. What kind of that's how I see it. I think that's how it has to be done. I think it should be done both ways. Pressure should be put on interests in many different ways, but sometimes I think we almost say, oh, you're part of the problem. No, you went out there to solve a lot of problems. How's it going? Describe some of the work that you're doing.
It's always fits and starts. I can feel progress, but it is incredibly incremental. So I am the senior advisor for media and entertainment with Gauge, which is a rapid response research firm that works with brands and studios and networks and others to ensure that what they're putting out is really going to resonate with consumers. So, for example, I'll be working with the Till movie, which is a new film coming out in October that discusses the life of Emmett and Mamie Till in a way that we have not seen before. So I'm part of an advisory council. And we know that it's going to be a tough haul because people feel like they know the story. People are concerned about trauma porn and having those discussions. Emmett Till, for anybody that doesn't know, was a 14-year-old boy who was killed in Mississippi and horrifically tragically murdered. And his mother, who lived in Chicago, she had sent him down to be with his cousins for the summer, as so many parents do. His mother famously decided to have an open casket so that people could see what they had done to her son. And so that sparked the civil rights movement because he was horribly disfigured and unrecognizable. But this film is not about that. This film is about the life of Emmett. So people know the story, people know the picture in Jet magazine, but did you know that Emmett had a stutter? Did you know the type of home that he and his mother shared? Did you know anything about Emmett's father? Those are the things that we get from this film, in addition to seeing what intrinsically is about a mother's love. The resilience that she shows because this was her only child, and what it meant for her to fight for justice, very often on her own.
It's obviously a very important American story, and like you said, a lot of people are familiar with it, certainly of a certain age. My daughters probably aren't. I don't know if they've learned about it in school yet, if so, if it resonated. But the premise of the film, in one sentence, is the film follows Mamie Till Mobley's pursuit of justice after the 1955 lynching of her 14-year-old son, Emmett Lewis Till. But what you're saying here is that this is a hard sell. I'm almost surprised that a film like this gets green lit, because it's a high budget film, and that means it's a business. It has to make money. And the question is, will white people see this movie, Till? And a more important question is, will black people see it? Answer, what you think right now as to how a film like this gets made. You can understand the importance of it, as you've already described, but how does a film like this get made, knowing that maybe no one's going to want to watch this for all of the obvious reasons that you already touched on?
Absolutely. It's a great question. And it truly speaks to the work of equity and inclusion that I have been doing since I created Oscar So White in 2015. So first and foremost, I want to celebrate Alana Mayo, who is the president of Orion Pictures, a Black queer woman who has been championing this film. And I think that matters, right? Because it's a question of who the gatekeepers are and who makes those decisions, as you mentioned, of, what gets greenlit and what doesn't. The director of this film is also a Black woman, Chinoye Chukwu, who made the amazing film Clemency about the prison industrial complex that showed at, I can't remember if it was either Sundance or TIFF. Phenomenal film. And so she was entrusted with this work because of her excellence. And Keith Beauchamp, one of the producers, worked for years with the Emmett and Mamie Till family and the Emmett Till Foundation, got their blessing for this film, got all of the context and the nuance that most people don't know. And so this is a film that has been blessed by the family. So I think that was part of it. This isn't something 30,000 feet and we're just going to assume all kinds of things. This is a film in which people worked for years to make sure that they got it right, to make sure that the family was not exploited in any way. And I think that comes through on screen.
I got to see Clemency now, too, starring Alfre Woodward. And
Aldous Hodge. Yes, he plays the incarcerated person. It is an amazing film. Alfre Woodward plays the warden, which very rarely do we see a Black woman in that role, or woman at all, especially of a men's prison. And a phenomenal film. Very much worth your time.
Aldous Hodge, I interviewed him for that. I guess I want to say it was a series about slavery.
Okay.
But anyway, the point I was going to make is he is a beautiful man. I'm just saying.
Oh, my God. I don't want to get on a tangent, but yes. And he's going to be Hawkman in the new DC film with The Rock, who plays Black Adam. That's coming out soon.
Oh, wow. He can be my Hawkman. Is my mic on?
Listen.
Oops. Sorry. Listen.
We're going to fight over that because I have been drooling over his Instagram for months.
Oh, really? Yes. Does he?
Aldous, call me.
I don't want to even go. He's a very handsome guy and ripped. He was also in the, I think he was in a movie with Tom Cruise, Reacher or something like that. Anyway, doesn't matter. And
I think a series, City on the Hill, maybe on Showtime with Kevin Bacon.
Oh, interesting.
That's currently
is working a lot. And let's ask about that. You look at the entertainment industry from a very comprehensive point of view. So meaning you want to get folks who are not traditionally invited or hired into every job, specifically folks of color, people of color, I think. But I mean, what is it when you think about how the film industry specifically is changing? How is it changing? It looks like there's a lot more movies, and if you follow people like you on Twitter and others, that are written, directed, starring, hiring people for makeup, and Black folks almost dominated by it. It seems like there's a ton of that, April. But I don't know what the percentages are. I don't know what the proportions are. And I, don't pay that close of attention. how are things going in terms of the opportunities that folks like you are trying to create? Are we doing better?
We're doing better. We're definitely not there. I'm going to push back on dominated, because I think that you feel that way because of the bubble that you live in, and we all live in bubbles, right? So I think you pay particular attention. Globally, for those who aren't, we're still nowhere where we need to be. But I think what we're seeing is Black filmmakers and producers of color and filmmakers of color are saying that they're no longer going to wait for the huge studios, MGM and 20th Century and all the rest of them to create opportunities. They're creating their own production companies and making those opportunities for themselves. So Alana Mayo, who I mentioned, who's the president of Orion Pictures, formerly ran Outlier Society Productions, which is Michael B. Jordan's production company. So she already had this knowledge base, and now she went on and was recruited by Orion, which is great. And so, yes, it feels that way. We just had the Black Panther Wakanda Forever trailer drop a couple of days ago, which I have watched no less than 472 times. And there are other movies coming out, which is incredibly exciting. I recently screened a documentary called Mama Bears, which is about Christian conservative women dealing with the fact that one of their children has come out as part and invited them in as part of the queer community. And so I want to correct myself there for a minute. My friend, Dr. David Johns from the National Black Justice Coalition, talks about the importance of not saying coming out, which I mistakenly did, but instead saying inviting in, right? And that centers the person from the LGBTQIA plus community and says, yes, they feel safe enough to invite you into their space, as opposed to, people are coming out of the closet and centering those who are on the other side of that door. So I'm trying to do better in using the phrase inviting in as opposed to coming out when talking about queer folks.
Oh, this looks really interesting. And that explanation of language, I'm always interested in how language is changing. I just got reprimanded for using the word minority.
Yeah. I prefer people from the global majority. Because if you think, because we can be very xenophobic in this country, but if we think about the entire world, Black and brown people and Asian and AAPI people definitely dominate with respect to numbers. And saying minority, especially in this country, as white folks are going to be minority majority, kind of relatively soon. I think that's
not if I can help it. Whoops, is my mic open? Is my mic on?
I think that speaks a little bit to white supremacy and the fear that white folks have of becoming the minority, and that begs the question: is it because minorities have been treated poorly in this country? Like, why are you concerned about becoming a minority?
All worth talking about and unpacking. Let me go back to one thing that you mentioned when we were talking about this film Till, which looks really good. You asked me to watch the trailer right before we talked, which put me in an interesting place emotionally. But you mentioned the phrase trauma porn, right? And what is that? When is it too much? Are there films that you or others look at and say that was too gratuitous, it wasn't necessary, it doesn't help? What are your thoughts on when that exists and how we walk a fine line to make sure that you're not making a film which falls into the category of trauma porn?
It's difficult.
Right.
And I think that a lot of this comes from social media and the sharing of videos of predominantly Black folks, especially Black men, who are being brutalized at the hands of law enforcement. So we can talk about George Floyd and, the over 8 minutes that he spent, with the knee on his neck. We can talk about the fact that Tamir Rice was playing in a park and we see the cops roll up and in less than 2 seconds, he's shot and killed. We can even go all the way back to Rodney King. I'm of the generation that absolutely remembers that video. And so what happens
Eric Garner.
Yes, there are way too many examples. And that's part of the problem, right? So over time, especially for Black people in this country, those images weigh heavily on us, because those people, predominantly Black men, could be our fathers, could be our husbands, could be our sons. And so when you walk around with those images that you see time and time again on social media, on the news, and what have you, it becomes trauma. And so then one has to ask, why do we see so much of it, right? And because it's, oh, well, we have to have an accounting for it so that people can be held accountable. Absolutely. But once you've shared that video with law enforcement, with the DA or, the DOJ or whomever is investigating, then why is it still on social media? Right. And then, oh, well, people need to see how bad things are for Black people. OK, but at what point is it enough? Right? Why do you not just take our word for the fact that we are being brutalized in the streets? How many different videos do you need to see before you actually get it? Right? And so the question is, does it become entertainment fodder or, this trauma porn for other folks? And so if we relate this to Till, one of my major concerns was, okay, we're going to see his body and so on. And, but it is not that. And so that's why I think it's going to be hard for the Black community, because we see so much of it all the time. So many films about slavery, and 12 Years a Slave and Django, and even going back to Roots, and so there's a plethora of them. And so Black folks are understandably hesitant to say, okay, I already get too much of this. I don't know that I want to sit in the theater for 2 hours. And our response to that is, this is not that. This is a story about a mother's love and her resilience. And this is the first time that I know of that we actually see Emmett happy, that we can see Black boy joy, which is a hashtag that we use on social media all the time.
Great point. Yeah, just in the trailer, you see that this is a boy with a soul who has a sense of humor. He's playful. He seems curious and fun. I mean, and it's like, I think that's important to, all I knew about Emmett Till is how he died, really, never how he lived. And you get to see a little bit of how he lived, which I think is probably important. But I also, I totally understand the point you're making about trauma porn. And I don't know, that brings us to the film Nope, because you just went to the premiere of that. And what I was going to say is, I don't like to go see scary movies because life is scary enough as it is. There aren't films that depict me as a straight white guy, my struggle in that category. But there are things that I've always seen in entertainment, from that movie Rudy, where a small guy, anything about someone who's small overcoming that. There's always things that we can relate to, but not those kind of generalities that folks who are members of marginalized communities have to deal with. But still, this movie Nope and the rest of his work, like, it's scary. And I don't want to see scary things because life is scary. So I don't choose to do that with my leisure time. But you use that tone that you use from time to time, which made me feel like, okay, I'll go watch it.
I have a tone? I don't know what you mean. But I'm sure you'll have my kids on after this to confirm, in fact, there is a tone. I don't like scary movies either. I don't do horror, the bloody, gory for gory's sake. That's not my genre. God bless the people who enjoy it. It's just not me. Jordan Peele is right now the king of horror films. And I think that's in part because they don't feel like horror, right? Because it's not gratuitous. And so, he's had 3 films so far: Get Out, Us, and now Nope, which just dropped this past Friday and was the biggest independent film opening since his last movie, Us, in 2019. So he is killing the game. He's competing against himself, which is wonderful. Nope it's hard to describe because it is sci-fi and it is Western and it involves aliens. So there's a little bit of horror there, right? I guess. But all of it makes sense and it makes you think. I mean, Jordan gives you stuff on the screen and then you walk away and the film sits with you for days because you're wondering what did that piece mean? And why did he, tie all these things together? So this is going to be a spoiler-free podcast. But I will say, we mentioned this. There's a show on what is it, Amazon TV called The Boys.
Yes,
right?
yeah, which I've watched all, I think now 3 seasons of, and it's the goriest thing I've ever seen in my life. I even have put my hand up in front of the screen a few times, it's horrifically violent and gory. Go ahead.
Yeah, and so if you can watch that, you will have no problem with any of Jordan Peele's films.
Got it.
No problem at all, because I cannot get through The Boys because it's too much for me. And, I think I winced maybe a time or two in Nope, but the story is so important. And so it stars Keke Palmer, who is amazing, Daniel Kaluuya, who I believe is Jordan Peele's muse in the same way that Leonardo DiCaprio is Martin Scorsese's muse. So they've done 2 films together, both Get Out and Nope, and a few other folks, but it's a very small cast. And so you are relying on these big budget visuals and the internal workings of what's really happening on the screen and why.
What's important about it, or was that give it away?
What's important about it is thinking about the way that we deal with spectacle and the things that we put up for mass consumption, which take away from those things that we put on display. And what happens when those things get turned on their heads, and that thing on display now takes control. Listen, Jordan would kill me, I'm sure, for that explanation. But it's a really interesting film. And in all of his films, I think he makes us think about how we as humans deal with things around us. And this is a continuation of that.
All right. Well, I know I'm going to get grief for admitting I haven't seen his work. I was always a fan of Comedy Central, Jordan Peele. I loved it, but Key and Peele, but yes. Jordan and Peele. But that's what he is now. He's gone off on his own, Jordan and Peele. Nope opened to $44 million, was the number 1 movie over the weekend. And I guess most importantly, it was as an original film, it's breakthrough at the box office, because most of the films that are having big openings, the top films are sequels, remakes, etc. I don't understand what the significance is here, so maybe you can help me.
It just means that it's not formulaic. Number one, that he wrote, produced, and directed this film. So this is, and I love the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but this is not, phase 3, film 2 of Iron Man or Thor, Love and Adventure, or what have you. This is something independent. And so that means that people have to believe in Jordan, right? People aren't going in with preconceived notions about they're going to see something because it's a sequel or a remake or something that they already know and are familiar with. This is brand new. This Nope is nothing like Us, which was nothing like Get Out. And so all is that, you know the actors, hopefully, but you're putting your trust in Jordan Peele to wow you. And once again, he blew it out of the water. So it matters that it's independent. And again, it's very hard for independent filmmakers to get a green light, as we talked about before. But he's putting something original on screen that you haven't seen you haven't seen before. But I will also say that there are wonderful references to Steven Spielberg and so many other, because Jordan is a lover of cinema, right, first and foremost.
That's really interesting. I got to get my daughter into all of his stuff for that reason, and all the others that you just mentioned. Okay, so the other thing that is really important to talk about with you is Comic-Con that's just wrapped up in San Diego. What is it? What does it become? They didn't have it for the past couple of years, I guess, because of the pandemic. But this year it was apparently massive, and it broke through my media lens, my silo, which does not really aggregate that much entertainment stuff. It just kept seeping through because there were huge things. The new Black Panther film, the new The Rock, Black Adam. And so many other really interesting things to talk about, but what is it? And is it more than just like comic book films and animation? And I mean, it seems like it's all entertainment now.
It is, and it's a huge event. So there's a San Diego Comic-Con, and there's also New York Comic-Con.
Right, in October coming up.
And they, I mean, bazillion number of people, hopefully masked up, descend on the convention center and find out more about the movies that they're interested in. So because it's Comic-Con, many of the films are related to stuff that people get from comic books, that are being made into movies. So Marvel very famously, will introduce an entire slate. So this past weekend, we found out about movies that aren't going to be released until 2025. And it's interesting for folks because they're like, okay, well, what's coming down the pike? How are we going to see Captain America now that he is Sam Wilson? And Chris Evans is no longer going to be Captain America. So what does that look like? You also get trailers and teasers. You get artwork, and then there are panel discussions for folks. You get to do meet and greets and take pictures. And so it's an entire event for so many folks. And it's wonderful because, you get this inside look as to what is coming soon. And so, as you mentioned, the Black Panther trailer released, and Black Panther will be out on November 11th. Of this year, 2022. And the film is called Black Panther Wakanda Forever. And I've watched it a million times already, this, 2 minute, 12-second trailer, because Black Panther, the original film, came out in 2018. And so we have been, with bated breath, waiting to see what they were going to do next. And unfortunately, in the interim, we lost Chadwick Boseman, who played Black Panther. And so there was a question of, what does that mean for the film? What does that mean for the character?
There's a real intense debate amongst all the fans and amongst the Black community, more specifically, it would seem.
Yes, there is, about whether we should acknowledge Chadwick's passing and therefore end the T'Challa character that he played. Who will next be the Black Panther and inhabit the suit? Or should we go a different way? Fortunately, a lot of the folks behind the camera are back a second time. So Ryan Coogler as director and a screenwriter, along with Joe Cole, who was his partner in the first film. Hannah Beekler, production designer who won an Oscar the first time, is back. Ruth E. Carter, who won an Oscar for costume design. And these are Black women who have never won Oscars before, who won an Oscar the first time for costume design, is back again. Nate Moore as producer one of the producers of the film. And so there was a real question about, as you mentioned, the debate, how much we can trust Ryan Coogler and Joe Cole to tell the story respectfully. What are we going to do about Chadwick's passing? And also respect the fact that there are millions of, as we mentioned, Comic-Con comic book fans who know the trajectory of Black Panther and say, okay, what are we going to do next? He marries Storm and he goes off to fight these various battles. How are we going to see those things happen if we don't have a Black Panther in this film? Famously, Reginald Hudlin created the Shuri character, who is the half sister of T'Challa, who's played by Chadwick Boseman. And in the comic book series, she temporarily took on the mantle. She became the Black Panther. She inhabited the suit. And so again, Letitia Wright as Shuri is back. Nakia, who's played by Lupita Nyong'o, who was Chadwick's partner, love interest, and also a spy on behalf of Wakanda, is back. So there's just, and we're introducing new characters. I say we, like I'm in it. I'm absolutely not in it or of it. I'm just love it. But so it's a question of how we continue the universe of Wakanda while being respectful to both the canon, but also to Chadwick Boseman and his family.
Do you have concerns?
I don't. No. Other people do. But I have no concerns whatsoever about Ryan and Joe doing the right thing because they were most deeply impacted, right? And because they told the story so lovingly the first time, I am willing to give all benefit of the doubt with no concerns whatsoever. Yeah,
you shared this very touching tribute that Ryan Coogler made to Chadwick Boseman at Comic-Con. So I don't know. I have no opinion on it. I just whatever. Hopefully, it's not too divisive. I guess I think it's such an important property, and I think it's been so clearly empowering, especially little kids, that I would hate to see it not, obviously continue to create those feelings and opportunities for a new generation or new people who would view these films for the first time, much less the rest of us who loved it. So I'm excited about it. What else is The Rock problematic?
No, I don't think so. Why do we think, why are you asking?
I don't know. So he's got some weird political views sometimes. He's gotten in trouble a little bit, it would seem. And I just don't know. I don't know how he's seen amongst different, constituencies, demographics. I don't know how I feel about him.
I think, yeah. I think that he's probably I think he's probably a conservative, which is understandable.
Whatever that means.
I think
today.
that he's. I think that he's smart and doesn't get into the political arena a lot.
Right.
Although there have been rumors from time to time about whether he's going to run for office at some point, right? Which kind of feels like it might be like a Schwarzenegger thing. The huge. Hollywood actor turned politician. Sometimes it goes well for us, and then we get Ronald Reagan, which did not go well for us, right? So we'll have to wait and see. I think that he loves a blockbuster, right? And he keeps several jobs at all times. So his movie, which also I had a moment at Comic-Con, is Black Adam, and that's coming out soon. And he plays the lead role. Aldous Hodge plays Hawkman in the film. And, it looks like another, it's DC, and I'm a Marvel girl. So already I have bias.
Oh, it's DC. Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know where I'm definitely have a Marvel bias, but DC has definitely done some good stuff. They have a bad rap, it would seem. No, they've done no good stuff?
Like ever? I'm sure they have. But
wow.
Recently?
Well, wait, forgive me. Are all the Batman doesn't fall under the DC? It's a
yes,
DC.
It does.
Well, I think Batman is great. All the Batman, the Christopher Nolan ones.
All of them?
Not all of them.
Okay, but yes, but we have Robert Pattinson now. He's our new Batman.
Yeah, I don't like that.
Did you didn't?
I'm a Christian.
Did you even see that one?
No, I saw it, and he's fine.
Okay.
But I'm a Christian Bale lover. He's one of my favorites.
I get it.
Well, there's so much more that I want to talk to you about. If we can talk for a few more minutes about. I mean, I love hearing your perspective on all of this, the industry, and what's coming up. How was your experience? Was it fun? Comic-Con? Did you not go to Comic-Con? I'm sorry.
Oh, I wasn't there. No.
Oh.
No, sorry. No, I have been to New York Comic-Con once, but to be honest, it's too many people for me. I'm an introvert by nature. But generally, unless I'm speaking somewhere, I can't just walk around and be.
I'm with you. Like I'm almost the same at this point in my life. But I was looking at your Twitter. There's so much about it. I just I made the assumption that you were there, but I wouldn't.
Well, that's because it's Wakanda forever. I am so obsessed with the film.
I'm not ready to go, or I'm maybe over anything other than like a performance, a concert of some sort, or somewhere, anywhere, basically with my family. I'll go with them, but I don't want to. Like, I'm certainly not choosing to go to a convention unless you're paying me. I'm good.
I get that, and especially now because there are health concerns. COVID is still out there, but now there's monkeypox, and monkeypox is spread through, from my understanding, skin to skin contact, but also surface contact, right? So I saw someone on Twitter the other day who said, don't try on any clothes before washing them because they may have some latent, whatever it is, virus on them. And that's really scary to me because I travel so much. And so I'm thinking about the seats that I sit in on the plane or, the hotel rooms, whether they've been sanitized properly. So I absolutely understand the concern about not traveling, attending well-attended events right now because you just never know.
I hear you, and I haven't really looked, that much. I haven't done a segment. I've read a lot about monkeypox, but I want to try to get an epidemiologist on to talk more about it. But how are you thinking in terms of what's going on in the world of politics, and how closely are you, we always talk politics, you think a lot about it, but how closely are you following this January 6th committee hearings? How concerned are you about the midterm elections? What are you paying? And obviously the Supreme Court decisions that have brought us way, way back. Let's just start with that. I'm sure you have plenty to say about the Supreme Court.
Sure. So I am a co-founder of She Will Rise, which was a grassroots organization, yes. Specifically working on the nomination and confirmation of the first Black woman to the Supreme Court, who turned out to be Ketanji Brown Jackson, who we are thrilled about. The Supreme Court is still 6-3, even with Justice now Brown Jackson. And it's scary that we are living in this time period, that women's health is not being protected. I very publicly said on Twitter and elsewhere that I have had an abortion. I consider abortion to be healthcare like any other medical procedure. And we need to normalize having those conversations. I can tell you that, at the age of 50, I had a colonoscopy. I can tell you when, I was much younger than that I had an abortion. You shouldn't see either of those differently, right? So, both of them are probably an overshare because you don't need to know all of my personal medical information, but we shouldn't necessarily attach a stigma to one or the other, because it is something that I needed to do for my body and was absolutely the right decision. So the fact that we have, 9 people who are in control of half of this country, the bodies of half of this country, is incredibly scary to me. And the ripple effects, right? Because there were so many trigger laws that went into effect as soon as that decision came down, that there are now entire states where one cannot safely receive a medical procedure. And so who will this impact most? Black and brown people and people with lower resources. I am thankful that, my daughter has the resources necessary. So if she ever chooses to have an abortion, she can have one in the state in which she lives, right, thankfully. But even if she needed to travel anywhere in the world, we can make that happen. There are millions and millions of people that cannot say that can't take the time off of work just to be able to travel to another country, to another state, in addition to being able to have the money for the procedure itself. And so I don't know what this country looks like in 10 years, because I could have never predicted that this would have happened. And so there's talk about codifying protection for women, and it's just unclear.
What about what's next in the culture war specifically? How concerned are you? And you're also very involved in the movement for LGBTQIA equality, and people are concerned now that judgment, Obergefell, is under consideration to be change, contraception, even gay sex. And you're hearing, like the other day, the House codified gay marriage, and it'll now go to the Senate.
Marriage equality.
Marriage equality. Forgive me.
We never say straight marriage.
Oh, I do.
So we shouldn't say gay marriage.
I always do. Just so I can be right in this. Just so I can be right in this argument. No, the new me would never say such a thing. Yes, marriage equality. And so the Senate, people like Marco Rubio is like, oh, this is dumb. This is a political stunt. It's not at all a political stunt. It's trying to pass a law to codify the Supreme Court. So how concerned are you about that?
I'm incredibly concerned. Justice Thomas, who never says anything, said in a dissent recently that we should, look at all the laws with respect to right to privacy, except the one about interracial marriage, right? Because that, Loving v. Virginia, because that would most directly impact him, because his wife, Ginny, who is an American terrorist, is a white woman and he's a Black man, right? So yes, contraception, the right of everyone to be able to marry, all of those things are set up, it seems, are being teed up to fall. And that's, affirmative action. And just to be clear, the people who benefit most from affirmative action in this country are white women, not Black folks. Google it. So there are concerns about the freedoms that people will have in this country. Right to bear arms seems like it's the only thing left. And so guns now have more protection than women do.
It's hard to argue that. It really is hard to argue that. It's tragic. Let me get out of politics and get to the final section. The kind of thing I love to talk to you probably most about, and I don't know, there's so many things that you can talk about, but I just love who you are and how you've dealt with life and how you see it. And you've been such a good friend and mentor to me. So I guess my question is one about self-care, mental health, emotional, spiritual health, however you want to deal with it, mental, just what we're going through in the world today. It's hard enough for me with my own personal stuff. I can't imagine what it's like for people who are members of marginalized communities of one or another, have to worry about their kids, as you've touched on throughout this conversation. What do you do? How do you navigate, April, all the chaos and the terribleness that it seems like the world has become, especially for certain types of folks?
I don't do enough. And I don't do what I do consistently. And that's a problem because I think that it matters how you show up for yourself. And you can't get water once your well runs dry. And so if you want to be there for your children, for your partner, for your fellow employees, you have to make sure that you're there for yourself first. And so, one of the things that I do that people may not think of as self-care is when I get up in the morning, I look at my calendar and I say, okay, how do these things make me feel? And if I am not encouraged and excited about them, then to the extent that I can, I will push them off for a day or for longer. Now, on the flip side of that, I am very privileged to be able to choose the work that I do. And so typically there isn't something on my calendar that I don't want to be there anyway. But every now and again, I need to do an interview, I need to do a panel or what have you. And so I make those choices. And so I start my day with intention. I'm looking forward to the following 3 or 4 or 8 things, and I know I'm going to enjoy them. So that's part of it, just setting my intention early every single day. So that is one thing that I do consistently. And I take breaks during the day because I think that's important that we recalibrate, so I try to, and actually I've got a thing right after this, but typically I try to have at least half an hour between every single thing that I do so that I can just breathe. I can reset, because sometimes things don't go well. And it's like, okay, I don't want to carry that energy into the next thing. Right. And so those, people think about self-care and it's, massages and going on trips. And I do those things and they are wonderful. But there are things that everybody, regardless of resources, can do just to be more thoughtful about themselves. I am a huge believer in therapy, and I think that is part of self-care too, to be able to talk to someone about what is going right and what is going wrong, and to continue with your therapist even when things are going well, right? So you can start therapy at any point in your journey. If you start it when things are going well and you just want to touch base with somebody, that's great, because then your therapist has a baseline. And so when you come in 3 weeks later and something feels off, they'll be like, okay, something's going on with April. Let's push a little further and find out what the issue is, because now, just things feel a little off kilter. I also ensure that my community that I curate carefully is healthy for me. Not everybody that started with me is going to end up with me. And I think that's part of growth too, to recognize when relationships no longer serve you and to get out of them. It's one of the reasons why I got divorced, because, that relationship was no longer serving me and it wasn't healthy for anybody, for me, for my kids, for my ex-husband. And it was a fantastic move for me. And I feel so much more healthy now that I'm not in that. And that's not to say that it was a bad marriage, but that relationship had concluded and it was time for me to start a new chapter.
Are you interested in having another partner in your life? Is that something you look for? Do you think women need that? Do you think men need that? Would you ever make a generalization about either, needing it more than, I think so many people around our age find themselves in a situation where they're either separated or divorced. And I think a lot of people then ask the question, do I really need to be with somebody? And there's no wrong answer. There's no wrong answer at all. I'm just asking you, you're always an open book. What are your thoughts on it for you?
I don't see myself partnering with someone long term again. I have not lived alone since 1992. That's true. That's an accurate number. And so I am enjoying this, finding myself again, not having to compromise, which is a staple of any relationship, not having to compromise on anything. Where the furniture goes in the house, what we're having for dinner, what I'm having for dinner, all of those things, whether we go out, all of those things. And so that, rediscovering who April is at 52 has been wonderful. I'm never going to say never. I can see myself doing relationships, but perhaps not even someone who lives in the city, right? So that we both can have our space. So, we'll see. You and I talk a lot. Ask me again in 6 months. We'll see where we are.
What is the worst thing what would be the most annoying? What would be just something funny here to wrap up? The biggest turnoff, the moment a man, in your case, does or says or is a thing. You've granted this person a date, okay? So you've gotten to know this person well enough. You now are out with this person. Have you had the experience, or can you name it? What is the immediate deal breaker for you where you're just like, I'm good? Outside some of the obvious, there's obvious things, right? But is there anything you're like, it might surprise you, be like, I am good. I'm not interested in that. Thank you.
See, you said outside the obvious. So cigarette smoke is smokers. That's a thing I could never do. People who are staunchly conservative,
right?
And anti-choice. But these are people that probably wouldn't get past.
They didn't get there.
Yeah. Anyway, having sitting there over dinner, men who are not open-minded with respect to equality for women. And that comes out in different ways, but that's probably something that you don't get until you start to really have a conversation with someone. That would probably be a thing. I don't want to do the, independent woman, hear me roar thing. But, once you get to this place in life, right, regardless of gender identity or anything else, hopefully you're at a place where you know what you want, you know what you don't want, you know what works for you. And so I'm not looking for anything long term, but I would need someone who complements me. But I am an individual on my own. I am complete, right? So I'm not looking for anyone to complete me for sure, but someone whose life complements mine, and we can move through the world together.
Great answer. You've. I believe what you're saying. I mean, I always do, but the courage of your conviction to talk about where you're at in your life and what you want it sounds very healthy. It sounds very clear. And you sound and obviously always look great, but you just sound like this move and everything that you're doing is all good choices. There's a lot of people in your boat in terms of the kids have grown up. And what do you do now? What do you do with the relationship, the marriage, the career? What do you do? And look at you. You're doing all of these things that you said you would, and it's working. It's working. I'm so happy to catch up with you and to see you, and congratulations. Fascinating to hear your perspective on everything as always, April.
Thank you. I always love having a conversation with you on air or not. So happy
hopefully it won't be too long again soon, because when it is, people get annoyed. Where's April?
Oh, that's nice to hear.
Yep.
Okay. I had no idea.
Yep.
That's lovely.
So I hope to talk to you soon, and I really, really appreciate it, as always.
Thank you.
All right, there she goes, April Rain. Rain of April. Go follow her on Twitter. Thank her for joining us, and hopefully it won't be as long before I join her again. Another shout out to Tina Winsett, who always encourages me to get her on. She's always never missing a beat, and it's very, very helpful. All of your ideas, suggestions, and guest ideas are super helpful. I like to think this is our show that you help create, produce, and be featured in every single day. And that is exactly what I'm doing right now, featuring a listener who has become a friend and just such a talented, hilarious, interesting, curious, at times eccentric or irreverent, very, very creative, talented artist. He's a voiceover artist. He's a musician. He's a singer-songwriter. He's a husband and the father of a young man, and he is so great because he's on vacation in Finland with said family, and he's interviewing foreigners, and it's just, I don't know what it is. I don't know how to describe this. So take it away. It's time for Annoying American Abroad with Pete Coe.
Annoying American Abroad. Today we're traveling by train through Finland. Like many countries in the European Union, Finland has rail service to such an efficient degree that you could pretty much go anywhere without a car. Frankly, I'm too stricken with horror to even describe to you what that looks like. Couple excellent public transit with world-renowned public education, retirement, and healthcare, Finland creates a living socialist nightmare for freedom lovers everywhere. I'm not even sure where I'm going today, but I hear it's some kind of natural lake where no doubt pagan rituals and consumption of alcohol will take place. So we are now off the train and sitting here in the expansive countryside of Finland. And I'm joined now by an actual Finnish person, my friend Mikko. Mikko, where exactly are we today?
We're in the beautiful Punkaharju in eastern Finland, close to our dear friend or neighbor, enjoying the scenery of mostly trees and lake.
Okay, and you need to specify who our dear neighbor is.
Well, he's a couple of miles from here. He's pretty big, and he's mostly been behaving nicely, but lately he's been making a bit of ruckus, but maybe... Yeah,
right.
Maybe you know who I'm talking about.
Right, Russia. So he's talking about Russia. Well, this is a popular holiday spot for Finns?
Yeah, I would guess so. Although I don't see many of them around, it's pretty quiet here. They even got their own train coming through here, which is kind of special. But yeah, it has a status. I mean, it's a legendary place, Punkaharju. Everybody knows it in Finland.
So as I understand it, Finland actually has wild animals, including bears. Are they a different species of bears?
They're brown, and you should avoid them.
Okay, they're brown.
Yeah.
Okay, are they anti-freedom bears?
I think they do eat Americans occasionally, yes.
Do eat Americans occasionally. Well, I'm going to have to note that. So what is the main industry here in this part of Finland? Along the way here, I saw a lot of logging and mining. Is it mostly plundering the earth? Are you guys good at that?
I mean, I have no idea, honestly, but looking around, it would have to be logging. I don't see a lot of other stuff going on around here. I would imagine so. When it comes to plundering, it seems like the forests are still winning because there's like trees everywhere, and I'm sure the locals try to get rid of them as fast as they can, but they just keep popping up. I guess that's what you get for not poisoning your ground with chemicals, like real countries.
Right. Yes, because we're really adept at that. Yeah. You commented on my red flannel shirt earlier. Actually kind of made an offensive joke about how I'm some kind of paper towel spokesman, but do you think that would be a fashion trend here that I could start in the region?
It has been, but we're kind of past it already. Yeah, so, there was a time when we all wanted to be Canadian like you apparently do, but...
Finnish people also like their saunas. They're famous for their saunas. As I understand it, that's actually a Finnish word, sauna.
Yes, there's only one country on the whole planet dumb enough to think that there's another word for that place. No need to name them here, but they're also our neighbor. But yeah, sauna is totally Finnish invention. It's amazing, and everybody who has experienced it and doesn't like it is bad and wrong, and everybody who hasn't experienced it should do so immediately.
Everybody that uses a different word is bad and wrong. Well, that's a great way to end this segment, I think. Everybody that uses it. We're going to do a sauna later, though, you and me.
All right.
Okay, are you going to be comfortable with a naked American inside the sauna? Okay.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, I shouldn't wear anything?
It's up to you. I won't judge, but I won't be wearing anything.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, well, I enjoyed the sauna very much, Miko. How about you?
Yeah, we had to keep it pretty cool, though, because you Yanks can't take the heat, but I enjoyed it thoroughly as well.
This is true. Yanks can't take the heat. That means something different elsewhere. I mean, describe this experience a little bit. I mean, the sauna is usually created by a heating coil with the rocks over it, right? And then, or you were saying somewhere, sometimes it's actually wood burning, the stove that creates the heat. Yeah, there's usually like a source of heat, which could be the heating coil or a bunch of piece of wood burning underneath in an oven. Then you have rocks at the top. The rocks get really hot, and the room gets pretty hot in the process. Then you throw water on the rocks, and then the water turns into, boiling steam essentially, and spreads into the room and makes people scream in pain. Good pain. Screaming good pain. So did you? And then at one point you threw beer on the rocks, and it smelled like a bakery. That's correct. Some people like it, some people hate it, but I don't know. It's a cool party trick. Just don't throw anything else on the rocks, if you know what I mean. Yes. Well, I think you were talking about the party trick of urinating. Yes. Also tried that in a lot of other people's saunas, and it's disgusting. So if you're over 15, don't do it. Yes, that's good sound advice. Before we close, I think there's something we need to address. Something you alluded to in our earlier conversation. Your anti-Swedish bias. Describe briefly, if you will, your country's rivalry with Sweden. Well, so first of all, I resent the statement anti-Swedish bias. I'm merely an observer that observes the curiosities of our lovely neighbor in the West, Sweden. One of them being that out of all the languages on this planet, only the Swedish language thinks that they have their own word for sauna. They call it bastu. Everybody else recognizes the Finnish word sauna, which is where the sauna originated from. So it's just this kind of stuff that I like to point out, and then somehow it gets turned into anti-Swedish bias. Right. So you're not, but what about their music scene? You were complimentary about that before. Yeah, that's great. They have great music. They have a lot of great stuff, though. But as a whole, since you asked, they are a nation shielded by strong nations on each side. And back in the day when Finns were just wearing bags on our heads and eating raw potatoes, the Swedish came and went as they pleased. They invaded us a bunch of times, but now that we're badass, they don't have the guts to do that anymore. So now we're way more friendly. We still have their language in Finland as a second official language. As a reminder of that, I think our terms are really good right now. We're joining the winning team NATO together in lockstep and all that stuff. But there's just a funny nation, but they do have some kick-ass music though. Yeah, well, the great Scandinavian scholar Bruce Dickinson did say that Sweden was one of the great rock and roll nations in the entire world. So you would agree with that? I'm sure he meant Finland, but you know how foreigners, they get these countries mixed up. But yeah, cheers, Bruce. Okay, well, this could devolve into a scandal very quickly. So I think in the name of being a completely neutral and impartial party to all this, which, as America usually is, I'm going to need to get another perspective. Okay, well, a dark turn here in the vast wasteland of Finland, where anti-Swedish bias is alive and well. And here with me to discuss the nuances and idiosyncrasies of this Swedish rivalry with Finland and what that might mean for Swedish society moving forward, I'm joined by another French person, my friend Maud. How are you today?
I'm well, thank you.
So you may have heard our mutual friend Miko and his terrible negative bias about your adopted country of Sweden. Do you share a similar disdain for Finland?
No, really not. I love Finland.
So you're not totally unfamiliar with having a rival nation. You talked about the 100 Years' War between France and England. Has that rivalry renewed now that Brexit happened and England has freed itself from tyranny?
I think it will always be a little something, but more closer to camaraderie. Not, we cannot really talk about any rivalry now between France and England. I don't think so. But
you don't think it's not a thing anymore?
I don't think it's a thing anymore. But it does play a role through games, through soccer. It like this emphasize the historical rivalry. Yes, but we do feel close to British people and love to also make fun of them or jokes exactly like siblings would do, I imagine. Yeah.
Speaking of siblings, I happen to be aware that you have the distinction of having 3 children born in 3 different countries, one of whom is actually born in the United States. Is he able to share the ways of freedom in the clearly overbearing socialist tyranny of your household?
Oh my God, no. No.
Well, what about his siblings? Do they get jealous of his U.S. passport?
Yeah, maybe a little bit. Maybe a little bit. This is a clear distinction. But to be fully honest, it's not necessarily because it's American passport. I think it's more because each of them has a different birthplace. So they are all extremely proud of their birthplace, as it's says a lot of each of them for them. If that makes sense.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I think I may need to confirm this directly with yes, American. With the American in your household. Okay, well, I'm here with the lone American in a French household living in Sweden, Mars. Mars, how old are you?
I am 10 years old.
10 years old. You have an older brother, right? And a younger sister. So you are the middle child. Do you have more responsibility as the middle child in the house?
I don't know.
You don't know. So do you do more chores than your brother and sister? Do you sweep up? Do you wash the dishes more than them?
No.
No. Okay. Who has the best passport?
I think it's me because all the other passports are only French and I have a half American and half French passport.
That's right. And so you have the American passport in the house, and so you were all born in 3 different countries. Do you have a pet bald eagle in the house?
No.
No, you don't have a pet bald eagle. If you're able to get a bald eagle, your foreign-born siblings won't be able to argue with you about anything. You know that, right?
Yes.
Okay. You could also spread the feathers around to ward off their socialism.
I don't know what you mean.
You don't know about that? So that's actually a neat trick. You just get the feathers off. You just pluck the feathers off the eagle and just spread it around the house. Have you ever tried that?
No.
Okay. Well, we'll have to get you a pet bald eagle and you can try that.
Yes.
Annoying American abroad.
It's so good. Really, really well done, sir. Thank you very much, Pete Coe. I loved it. I hope we get one more installment because I'm really it's growing on me. I mean, I like it from the jump, but what a great idea. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. And of course, thank you to April Rain and everybody else, including John Carroll, who wrote and performs this song for us each and every day. All right, folks, looking forward to talking to you tomorrow. Let me know what you want to hear today, and email me, standupwithpete.com@gmail.com. Of course, sign up for subscription, standupwithpete.com. And if you want to hire someone for your firm, for your company, indeed.com/standupwithpete. Just go hit that link, by the way, and I get the tracking. Also, don't forget to review this podcast on Apple and Spotify. If you've never done that, do it now. Do it today. That would be huge. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Love you. Be the change you want to see in the world. Bye-bye.
Boy, you better stand up. Stand up. Well, there's a whole lot more of us who know us right. They'll keep right on ignoring us if we keep sitting tight. You got to open up the window to let in some light. You got to stand up. That's right. You got to rise up. You got to stand up. You got to stare the devil straight in the eye. We got to let him know it's his turn to go. off of your fence. Even if it ain't a very friendly audience, well, they'll begin to listen when you start making sense. And you stand up, stand up. No need to point your rifle to defend your town. Just stand up, stand up. You know they can't deny you what you're laying down. Boy, you better stand up, stand up. Show your face of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. She's the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up, stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up, they had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for laws, and since they weren't even sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We gotta let him know it's his time to go, and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. All right, we got to speak up. We got to reach up and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up. You got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well, and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says stand up.